this lesson, we're going to play around with pointillism. So, if you're familiar with pointillism, then you are familiar with George Seurat, who actually developed this style of painting. So he was around the time of the Impressionists, and Impressionists like to paint in the moment. Well, pointillism, you cannot do that. But one thing that they did have in common is they like to combine their colors on the canvas. In this case, I am using watercolor paper. And so Claude Monet and Renoir, they were chasing that moment in time, and so they had to, instead of being in a studio where they could use their palette and mix their colors properly, they were usually outside painting in plein air, and they would mix their colors on the canvas and kind of trick the eye. So the pointillists, George Seurat and friends, did the same thing, except theirs took much more time, but instead of mixing their colors, they just applied different colors in certain combinations to their canvas, and they let the viewer's eye mix the colors in their brain. In this lesson, we're not really gonna try to fool the eye. We just want to play around with pointillism. So I got this Eiffel Tower at the Eiffel Tower. I've been there a couple of times, and it is so cool to go up to the very top of it. But they sell these everywhere around actually all around Paris, but definitely they just have like Eiffel Towers in every size laid around, wanting all the tourists to buy them, and of course we do. So if you don't want to paint the Eiffel Tower, you don't have to, but I'm just using this as my visual, so you can choose whatever subject matter you would like to do your pointillism piece with. But for this, you're going to want a number 2 pencil with a brand new eraser on it. So hopefully you can see that this is a good eraser. And I'm just going to use our lovely colors. I don't want to waste them all. So these are the ones we used with the rainbow and then also the splatter paint. So I'm going to use those, but first what I'm going to do is take a mechanical pencil, and I'm just going to start at the top and sketch out a very rough drawing of the Eiffel Tower. Actually, I would like to get it a little more centered than I have it now. I'm not a good one for measuring, but that's okay. So it actually looks like the letter A, the way it comes down. Again, I encourage you to use whatever subject matter you want. Okay, so here is my very rough sketch. I'm going to just erase some of the lines. I'd actually like to erase most of the lines because I don't want it showing up underneath my paint, but so that you can see what I'm doing, I'm going to leave it there. Looks like I need to... Actually, it would be great if I held it up in front of me instead of having it lay down. It's kind of hard to see. And a lot of times when I'm trying to even things up, I turn them upside down just to get a different view. It's not perfect, but that's okay. All right, so what we're gonna do now, I'm gonna move my little Eiffel out of the way. And as I mentioned, I'm gonna use my beautiful Roy G. Biv plate. And all I will do, and I'm going to start dark. So I'll just dip the eraser of my pencil into the paints. I'm just going to dot all over. Then I'm gonna use one color at a time, and I will work my way backwards. The red is actually, it's on the dark end of my color spectrum in my opinion, and I will probably mix in just a little bit of it, but I will end up with my yellow, and then I'm going to come in with a little bit of white. I don't have it on the plate yet, and I'll probably put it on its own little dish so that it doesn't mix in with all these, and just add in some highlights and kind of mix all the colors and make them look a little softer towards the end. So I'm going to go into time lapse again, and we'll be right back. All right, so as you can see, I felt that my Eiffel Tower was worthy of having some pink on it. So I'm going to grab our little dish here. I'm going to add some white. And I hope you noticed that I was wiping off the eraser of my pencil every so often, actually in between every color, just so that it wouldn't blend too much. Now I'm going to come in here and just very lightly, you're going to have to continually wipe it off with the pink, with the white. I want to add in some white, but I don't want it covering up all my colors. So I'm not doing a straight up and down stamp like I was with all these other ones. I'm just kind of barely touching it and putting just a little bit here and there. And that is mixing our colors and adding in some highlights. So I'm going to continue doing that, and then towards the end I'll probably come back in and add in some of the colors that I started with that seem to have gotten covered up. Just playing around, adding the colors until I am satisfied with my version of the Eiffel Tower. All right, so I am just going to take my eraser. It's got a little bit of green and a little bit of, a little bit of green and a little bit of the turquoise on it. And I just kind of use that to paint in my little tip of the tower. Since I put my lovely fingers in the paint and then laid my fingers on my watercolor sheet, I'm just going to take a baby wipe, or if you have a water bottle, you can spray it down and use a paper towel. Just pull that up. You can even take a little bit of white paint, dab it over, cover it up. Not a big deal, but here is our lovely Eiffel Tower. And as I was creating it, I thought this would be fun to do with just your initial. So because it looks like an A, so whatever your initial is, maybe you want to sketch that out and make a pointillism piece using your acrylics with it. Have fun playing around with your pointillism piece.